Hey guys, what's up? Hey, what's up, guys? Hey guys, what's up? I've taken some walk around videos in the past of poison ivy, but I've never really went in depth and talked and explained things and really showed what was all done to the car. So tonight I thought I'd do a video just going in depth and kind of explaining things, especially the wiring side of things, because I get a lot of questions about that a lot. So not this, I guess last winter, I stripped everything out of the car and I completely redid my own harness. Like, I made my own harness, a chassis harness, everything. I went through, and there wasn't a single factory wire left in the car before I started. But before I get into that, a little background about the car. Most of you guys know Poison Ivy, and that it's a 92 GSX. It's got a 6-bolt in it with a 3-bolt rear. The rear, this past shootout, I had to replace my only launch at the track and only pass at the track. I ended up twisting the splines where the axle goes into the rear end. So my good buddy Alan Saner brought an entire drivetrain setup because I knew I was going to need some stuff. He brought axles, he brought a transmission, he brought a bunch of stuff. So I swapped that out at the shootout. Now that came out of a Galant VR4, and I can show you real quick. The Galant VR4s, they have the Galant VR4s have a all-wheel steering, so they have a pump. I'm not sure if you guys see it, but they have a pump that's mounted on top of the rear end for the all-wheel steering, and I just had the hose blocked off. But it's a 3-bolt, and so far it's been fine. I don't think I broke an axle with that yet, which is something that I do often because of the 3-bolt. But the 6-bolt, I just put this car back together with a new 6-bolt, and hang on. Anyway, I just got it running and driving last night, and put another 6-bolt in it. Got this one off of Ronald Payne. He's a good buddy of mine. Dealt with him in the past. He's made a lot of money off of me. So far so good. It's quiet. I don't hear any noises. I had my concerns heading into the whole thing. It was supposed to be rebuilt, and it only had like 150 miles on it allegedly. So I took the pan off, and it kind of looked similar to this, actually probably worse. It was like all the nasty old oil burnt color, the bronze looking color, you know. And I'm used to a block that's clean and silver and, you know, it looks nice. So if it was rebuilt, they clearly did not do, they did not take it to the machine shop to get hot tanked and cleaned out properly. So I have honestly no idea what's done to it. I don't know if somebody just threw new rod bearings and main bearings in and called it a day and called it a rebuild. I don't know. But so far so good. I'm gonna send it to the moon, just like I always do. Uh, it's on E85. I have 1450cc injectors, fuel injector clinic injectors, and I'm using stock lines still. Feed and return are both stock. The turbo is a HY35. Justin Witzel built it. I'm using a 4 AN to feed and a 12 AN to drain. FP intake pipe, still on a 2G mass airflow sensor. I run the Evo 8 ECU, and I've attempted to run speed density. I have everything for it, including the map sensor, the IAT sensor. Everything's already there. But I haven't successfully figured out how to run speed density. Speed density on these Evo 8 ECUs are a pain in the ass. So I'm rocking the old 2G MAF still. This winter I want to switch to DSM Link. I'm glad I went with the Evo 8 ECU because I learned a lot, and it was not, I mean, I guess there's a lot of info out there, but it's all scattered around. So I was able to put a nice document together with a ton of information just in one thread. But I run a tile 38mm wastegate out the hood. I run a fake tile blow-off valve, which has been really good. I bought it on eBay, and I don't usually use eBay parts, but I've heard a lot of good things about them. I did buy a genuine tile spring. I think I ended up using a white spring based off of my vacuum. 272 cams with Brian Crower springs, everything else in the head of stock. Stock bottom end. I got a BS Fab front bumper exit exhaust. JMF intake. Still have the stock 1G turbo throttle body. Catch can. I just put that in not too long ago, probably 3-4 months ago. Kyle Milford made it for me. He's just starting out making products. He can weld aluminum, and he does a great job. I have two 10AN going to the valve cover and one 10AN going to the intake pipe. I'm going to be changing that out to have the line going from the catch can to the intake pipe larger to 12AN. I'm using a 2G transmission. Last year, or at the beginning of the year or something like that, my transmission bolts backed out, and I was, launching and stuff, and I didn't catch it in time, and I snapped the bell housing and cracked the ear off the block on the front side where the engine and the transmission bolt together. So I had to pull the motor out, have my old engine, the ear there, welded back on. And I bought this transmission off of Ronald Payne, same guy I got this engine off of. Shifts great, I love it. The 2G transmissions have double synchro, so it's a little bit of an upgrade, I guess. The manifold I'm using is a Rev 9 manifold. You can find them on eBay for less than 100, and I think it's like $116 shipped, I believe. They're amazing. They're one of the shortest running manifolds you can get. The HY35, they come from the factory single scroll, whereas the HY35s come twin scroll. So in order to run a HX35, you have to buy the BEP housing bullshit if you plan to run single scroll, and if you run off the DSM flange manifold. But with HY35 you don't have to do that. So that's all T3 T4, and it spools, I think, like 4250 RPM. I get full boost. It's it's great for single scroll. If I had HX35 and converted to single scroll, it would probably wouldn't spool to at least 4,500 RPM. I don't know. I've never ran one, but anyway, it spools great. Spools quick. Some of the dumb shit I have done to the engine bay, I got a coolant temp sensor mounted in there, and after I just put the engine in, I realized it doesn't work anymore because the wire it's a mechanical gauge, so it's got the wire where when it goes into the sensor part is broke. So I don't know if you can repair them or not. I haven't looked into it yet, but it's kind of shitty. But I have a push button start right here. That comes in handy when I'm doing a compression test and I'm by myself, or if I need to bump timing over to, or if I need to bump the cam gears over to get it lined up. Just quickly right here bump it over. For whatever reason, if I need to get it to top dead center, when I first put, like with this motor, I wanted to pump the shit out of the oil before I actually fired it up, so I'm right here cranking it over, priming the oil system. And then when I did finally start it up, I was starting it up right here. I could one hand here on the push button, one hand on the throttle, and I could bend down and watch for leaks. I'm right here, so just something we do with the dirt cars. It just makes a lot of sense. With the race cars, I mean, you're climbing in and out of the car or whatever, so you don't have a door to open. Trying to think what else for the engine bay stuff. I run open loop. I don't run closed loop. I'm locked in open loop, so my Innovate wideband is wired into my ECU wiring for my front O2 sensor. Some people say you can't do it, it's bad, blah blah blah, but I found that it's way more consistent between poles or whatever. It's just it does what you want to do, and it doesn't kind of try to just take over and do its own thing. Trying to think what else. That's pretty much it, I guess, for the engine bay stuff. And we'll move on to the inside of the car. I'm gonna take the dog inside so he isn't trapped in the car. Alright, so inside the car there's a lot of shit going on. Things that get the most attention is these relay panels. I have one right here, and that's basically replacing my engine bay fuse box harness. I got a little fuse block in there, a bunch of buses. I got my wideband mounted, my wideband controller mounted there. Everything from my toggle switches and my gauges, everything runs through that relay panel. All the MPI, where the MPI gets power, where the ECU gets power, everything is ran through that. It was kind of a, this whole thing was a time-consuming process, but in the end, I'm glad I did it. It was fun. I learned a lot. But yeah, that one's for the engine harness, and then I have one in the back for my chassis harness, and that panel was easier to make, but the wiring was a lot more complicated. For the engine bay, or for the engine side of the electrical stuff, what I did was I went from, like, I guess basically I cut off all the pigtails from the ECU, so I had, like, a few inches of wire hanging out of it, and then I went from each pin one by one and ran a wire to wherever it was supposed to go. So for example, like the coil pack, I would get, run a wire from the ECU to wherever the fuck it has to go, the MPI, blah blah blah, and then up to into the engine bay. fuel injectors. You know, one wire runs from the ECU, it goes to the injector resistor pack, and then it goes to the engine bay, to the injectors. So I did all that one by one, and I mean, that was a pain in the ass, yeah, but it wasn't horrible. The chassis harness, on the other hand, that was I had a lot to learn there, because with the engine bay stuff, it was pretty. I knew what to do. I just had to follow the wiring diagrams. But for the chassis stuff, at first it kind of seemed really simple. You know, just have everything hooked up to toggle switches, and you know, all my lights and stuff like that. Easy. You know, just headlights. Have toggle switches for my headlights. Blah blah blah. Running lights. But then you start thinking about it, and you get to the whole, like to the turn signal stuff. Well, the turn signal runs off the same bulb as the running lights. So how do you get the fucking thing to blink and blink bright? And you know, because with the running lights, they're not bright. They're just, there's two filaments in the bulb. If only one filament's lit up, then that's what it looks like right now with the running lights. The blinkers light up both filaments. I have a switch right here. See, now you can see the difference between the passenger side, which has just one filament with the running light, compared to both filaments with the turn signal, and how only one filament is on all the time and one filament is blinking. What I did after some research is that you have to get a blinker unit thing. I can't remember what the hell they're called exactly. I'm trying to see if you can see it up in there. Yeah, right here. Hopefully that's on camera. That's what makes it click and shit. So you start figuring out all that shit and figuring out how it all works together, and it exercises your brain a little bit. And the headlights are the same way. You know, low beams, and then this toggle right next to it is the high beams. You know, and that's, so back to the turn signal thing. You know, that's just one one blinker. That's just the front left blinker. You got the front right. You got to tie the left sides in with the backs, and you got tail lights, and then you got brake lights back here, and everything has to work together. And they're pretty much using the same bulb. So that was complicated to figure all that out, but it was fun. And then so my brake lights, I'm just using a factory brake light switch. I had to figure out how it worked and what it did when the brake was pushed down and all that. And I don't remember how it was from the factory, but with the lights in the back, the tail lights, the brake lights and shit, there's 3 bulbs back there, and I have the brake lights on its own and the tail lights on its own. So right now, like, the tail lights lit up, so I don't remember which one. Maybe this one here is lit up for the tail lights, and then the other one over here next to it, maybe that one's for the brake lights or whatever. So that only comes on when you hit the brakes. But yeah, that's my relay panel. It works just like the one in the engine, or the one for the engine bay, or the engine harness. I got a fuse block and a bunch of relays, and I have some extra relays there, so that way if I need to, you know, add some more shit, I can add them. I think I have one spot left on my engine harness, or engine panel. But another thing, it was probably the biggest pain in the ass, to figure out was the alternator wiring. When I first put it all together, my alternator was like overcharging, and then I tried it a different way. I don't remember, you know, the specifics or whatever, but then it wasn't charging at all. So I found out that the wire, the sensing wire, it needs a like a diode or a resistor. So what I ended up doing is that little green light above my kill switch there, my alternator wire has that in line with it. So from the alternator, what happens is there's two pins that get power. And I don't remember how it was now, but anyway, one pin gets 12 volts constant, and the other pin is like tripped back and forth. So right now the car's not running, and that light's on. So when I start cranking it over, that light will go out once the car fires up, and it won't get 12 volts. It'll kind of switch over to the other pin. I have wiring diagrams that I made for all this shit. So if you ever have any issues with anything like this, and you can't really find much, because the alternator wiring, that was a bitch to find all the information for that. So if you ever are dealing with something like this, and if you're having problems, get a hold of me, because chances are I got something, I got a diagram or whatever. I have it all saved, so that way I can go back to it, or if I have problems with it again, I can remember how it works, like the alternator relay or the alternator wiring. Trying to think. These lights are pretty cool. This car is a lot different than most DSMs. A couple of years ago, I started watching vlogs on YouTube, and there's some with DSMs in them, but they, compared to others out there, they weren't very good. Like, I mean, it's not that they were bad or whatever, but they weren't as fun, I guess. So what I ended up doing is, there's a couple channels that I watch on YouTube with drift cars, like with 240s. They're really good, and they do dumb shit like this. That's fun. Yeah, anybody can build a car with factory interior and blah blah blah, and then it'll look like every other DSM out there. For this, I wanted my own thing. I do really like drifting, so what I kind of did was I incorporated the DSMs with the drifting world, and a little bit like with the dirt car stuff that I came from, like with the push button start, and just I have my own little thing going on here, and it's unique. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying that everybody should do this. It's nothing like that. Alright, the GoPro died, so I'm gonna try and pick up where I left off. But anyway, I was watching all these vlogs with 240SXs, and they were having fun and doing some fun shit. And I've always liked the drifting world. Just from my dirt racing background, I like to be sideways, so you know, naturally I'd like to kind of do shit like that. And just the stuff that they do is like, in that community, there's no like, you know, oh, I can't believe we did that because it's not factory or whatever, which is a lot different than the DSM community. So anyway, I did my own thing, and I'm glad I did. I'm gonna take you inside the car now and show you a little bit of what all the toggle switches and shit are for. Alright. So I got my water temp gauge, oil pressure gauge, which I don't have hooked up because I use a forward-facing oil filter housing, and I need to tap a spot to run a gauge, to run a sensor to. Oil temperature gauge, I don't have that hooked up either because I don't have anywhere to put that either. I have a aftermarket fuel gauge. The main kill switch there that powers everything, cuts everything off. My Injecto-Cedo cuz button, and I also have my eject pull strap here too. But anyway, this button is they're all rocker toggle switches. This is a momentary for my starter. This is for my fuel pump, which you can hear. This is for one of my fans, but I don't have it hooked up. This is for my main fan. These are the white lights, green lights, and then those two are empty. I got this switch panel on Amazon, and I kind of modified it a little bit. I think there was I don't remember what was there now. Something was there. I took it out and I put a new socket in it. So now when I plug my computer in to my car, I just plug it in right here, and then on the other side of that, it runs to the Tactrix port stuff. Just a little cleaner thing. It came with that volt gauge. I already showed you a little bit of this, but turn signals, running lights, tail lights, low beams, high beams. Try and show you a little bit of underneath the dash because there's a lot of stuff down there. I got my distribution block up there for my battery location, and I got an A&L fuse holder up there. I don't know if you can see it or not, but it's got the big power wires coming in and out of it. What that does is replace the three fusible link things that are on the onesies on the positive terminal. Trying to think of what else I can show you. I got my injector resistor pack and my PTU up there on the inside of the car instead of in the engine bay to clean things up. These lights that I got, the green lights are kind of, you know, ricer fun lights, but the white lights, you know, they're like work lights basically. I like to be able to see every fucking square inch of the inside of this car, especially with all this wiring stuff. So before I got too far with the wiring, I didn't have any lights that, you know, up under the dash, and it was a pain in the ass to see, and I was trying to hold a flashlight and drop lights and stuff. So I put these lights in it, and they're LED. They work amazing, and I can see everything up in there. I never need a fucking flashlight in my car ever again because of these lights. I kind of wanted to do some more underneath the car. The same exact lights, not like an underglow thing, but then again, I've never had them before, you know, underglow. That'd be kind of cool, but work lights, you know, it would be nice to have something in the wheel wells so I can turn them on if I'm working with brakes and stuff. I just try and have light in every nook and cranny of this car. The engine bay lights would be awesome, like down in the sides, down at the bottom especially. But I don't want them to where you can see them. I just want it so you can see the light. I don't want you to be able to see the lights themselves. Like how you can see those green lights in there from the front of the car, that bugs the shit out of me, but you can't really put them up any higher. So back to the alternator thing real quick. I'm kind of not happy with how I was like describing that. So there's two terminals, two pins there, and um, they both eventually, I think, get 12 volts, or it crosses over or something. But what that light does is, instead of that whatever pin getting 12 volts right now, it goes through that light first, the little green dummy light thing. It goes through that light first, and what that does is it reduces the voltage, so that by the time it gets up here to the alternator, it's only like, I don't know, like 4 volts or something compared to 12. So then the alternator starts spinning when you're cranking the car, and it fires up, and then it switches over. Another problem that I was having when I had it wired up wrong is I would shut my car off, and the alternator would keep it running, so that it wouldn't shut off. So that's one of the issues that I had too, with the overcharging, the not charging at all, and the not shutting off when it was supposed to shut off. Blah blah blah. It's kind of cold, but I'll fire it up real quick. I could start it up from inside the car, but I might as well show off a little bit and use my engine bay push button to start if I can get the GoPro situated. It's on E85. It's still pretty cold. I did have the engine running earlier, but it's probably gonna take a couple cranks before it fires up. But yeah, let me fire it up. Oh yeah, I should probably turn my fuel pump on. Alright. I'm going to come back here where you can hear me for a second. One thing I'm really happy with this motor is it is pretty quiet. You know, there's no engine noise. Even the lifter tick, there's no lifter tick. Every now and then I do have a problem with lifter tick. Now this is the same head that I've been using for a few years now. I didn't do anything special to the injectors at all, or to the head. There's no engine noise. You would think it would be hard to tell because, you know, I have a front bumper exit exhaust, but in person, when you're on this side of the car, it's like quiet compared to walking around to the other side. So anytime that I do have any kind of weird noises or anything like that, I can hear them on this side very easily. The only noise that is there is the transmission always makes some noise when I first start it up. But that'll go away once it's warmed up. But there's no lifter tick, there's no knocks, there's no ticks, there's no nothing like that. So I am happy with it. I was very paranoid. The way the motor looked, I mean, I know it's just a color thing, but the fact that they didn't take the time to clean the block and clean everything out, take it and get it hot tanks and shit when they allegedly rebuild it. I mean, they didn't spend too much time, money, or effort in them cleaning it up. So I wouldn't imagine they would have spent too much time or money doing the other shit. can really hear the transmission now. Once it warms up, the idle will come up, and you won't hear it. Just when the idle is really low, you can hear it. Probably like, I don't know what time it is. It's probably like 2 in the morning right now. Maybe 1, I don't know. But I'm gonna hit anti-lag real quick for you guys. And just to show you that I have 0 fucks given. Let me walk a little bit next door so these motion light things come on. See that? That's not only my neighbor's house, but that's my landlord. My landlord lives there. And he's supposed to give me a garage door a long time ago. This will be the 2nd winter without a garage door. So I gotta use a tarp when it gets cold out, or to keep the leaves from blowing in and out. So I don't really give a shit, and I do this all the time. I don't fucking care. So I'm gonna try not to get the GoPro too close to the car, because if it's really close, then it kind of fucks up the noise of the 2-step. So I'm gonna try and prop this up somewhere. Kill it. I might as well show you my functioning kill switch I have in the back here. Before I do that, my license plate lights, they are not, you know, I didn't leave the factory shit in. I bought this light here and I wired it up myself. I just kind of screwed it to the inside of the bumper there. I got that on Amazon too. A lot of the shit I got on Amazon. So anyway, that's the kill switch. It works. Battery location, I have diagrams and shit on my website about how to do that, and like how I have mine. I haven't updated it. That was like the first battery relocation diagram, if you will, but it's mostly the same. This motor here, I could have used that when I blew Mary's engine up, and when it was in here a couple weeks ago. And some of you guys might have seen that I had a built motor. It had it was supposed to have Eagle crank, ended up having a stock crank. It had Eagle rods and had Wiseco pistons. I took it apart and quickly found that a rod bearing was fucking chewed to shit, so I gave that motor back, and he gave me this one. It's a stock bottom end, but I kind of do regret it now. But I could have taken my crank either out of this or the crank that was in Mary's engine, because even that's still good as long as it's not dinged up from a rod, you know, being flung around in there. But I could have put a crank in that, because the crank was kind of scored up, put new rod bearings in it and call it a day. But I could have done that with this one too. I could have spent the $600 that I invested in buying that. It was supposed to be, drop in, ready to go engine. I could have taken that $600, took this engine to the machine shop, had them clean it and hone it and bore it if it needed to be honed or bored, and then bought Weiss forged pistons. I don't know. I probably would have done the Eagle Rod Weisco piston combination, but I'm doing that to this winter. But the reason why I didn't stick with that first motor is because that's, I could have just taken that $600 and done the same thing with this and had a completely fresh engine that I knew that was fresh, a motor that I assembled, motor that I took and got machine work and clean and blah 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 blah. So that's why I didn't stick with that first motor. But this one here, I gotta take it off of the stand because the stand is fucking useless. The wheels don't spin or nothing. I'm just checking to see how much battery life I have. So anyway, that's the plan for this winter. I don't know what I'm going to do exactly with the internals. I'm definitely going to be using a stock crank. I don't think it's necessary. The GoPro died again, but as I was saying, I don't think a forged crank is really necessary. And I could take that money that I'd spend on a new forged crank and dump into a head. Because like I said, this head still has stock valves. The only thing that's at the market in it is the cams and the valve springs. So this head I'm going to be giving to Kurt. I promised him I give it to him with the cams and everything in it. So I'll be buying a bare head anyway. And so when I do the motor and get all the machining done, I'll send him my head to get all that prepped so I can put some bigger valves and shit in it. But yeah, this motor now looks a lot better. Like I said, it used to look like the nasty color and shit. But I went to town on it, man. Like, I was not gonna put that in my car looking like that. So I had some purple power, I had some simple green, a ton of brake clean, and I cleaned the shit out of this. Well, not this one, but this one. And I disassembled it all. Took the front case off. Another thing that bugged the shit out of me, when I took the front case off and the rear case, but especially the front case, the front seal. I've never had such a hard time getting front seal out. It's like it was in there for so long that it like bonded with the front case. Like it became part of the front case. It was ridiculous. I could not believe how hard it was to get out. So when somebody rebuilt that, they sure as hell didn't change the front case, especially if it only had 150 miles on it. They didn't take that front case off. They didn't replace that seal. They didn't do any of that. So I did all that while I had it all apart, and I did the rear seal. I had it all disassembled, and then I put it all back together. But before I started assembling it, it looked nice. It was all clean and shit in there. So like I said, I'm happy with how it turned out. Trying to think what else to tell you or show you. I don't know. Oh, the half radiator. Every time I post engine bay picture or something like that on Facebook, everybody comments, how do you run that and keep the temperature down? Like, it's not hard. Literally, the only fucking problem that people have is they overheat, but it's because they're using a fucking shitty fan. I always use Spal fans. I always get the highest CFM one I can find. I don't remember right offhand how many CFMs that one flows, but this thing on a 90-degree day driving around town, I'm between 180 and 195 on my coolant temp. So I do have a front fan. Like I said, I wasn't completely wired up, but I never need it. The only time I have used that in the past is if I'm like sitting somewhere and it's hot out and I'm idling for a while. I'll turn it on just for peace of mind. But if you're gonna run these, now this is a 3-row, not a 2-row. A lot of people will get a 2-row and they're not as wide. This is a 3-row, so that helps a little bit. But I even have one of these in my daily. I have a 2-row in my daily because my full-size stock radiator, the 2G, the neck here broke off. So, and I was hurting for money that week. So Amazon Prime, next day shipping, $50. I got a fucking cheap fucking 2-row half rad, and I threw it in. And that's been fine, but I have a spow fan in that, so I don't have any problems whatsoever. This nigger rig job here I have, no offense, when I put the motor in last night, it wouldn't start up. I didn't have spark, and I found that my cam angle sensor plug, one of the pins pulled out, so I just have each wire going individually to whatever pin it's supposed to go to for now. To get me by. I probably have another cam angle sensor plug around here somewhere, but what else? Air filter. That's K&N, but it came off of Amazon. It was like $30 cheaper than it would have been at AutoZone. That's Amazon Prime. It sucked because I do try and buy everything I can off of like places like Extreme PSI, like especially OEM timing belt stuff or whatever. But you just can't beat Amazon Prime. One swipe and the shit's gonna be coming to your door. You don't have to enter no fucking address every single time. You ain't gotta do none of that shit. You ain't gonna be, you know, you get free shipping if you got Amazon Prime. Whereas like when you're buying shit from Extreme PSI, you're spending like $15. Even if you just order like something simple as a oil return line gasket. Like it's fucking, you know, including the price of the gasket, it's like 20 something shipped. It makes no sense. So it sucks because, you know, eventually Amazon's gonna take over and places like Extreme PSI aren't gonna be able to fucking keep doing what they're doing. Even the gaskets, this entire, I'm not gonna tell you where I get. I don't know. I guess I don't know. I don't. I get them for next to nothing. I'm not gonna say where I get them because I love having them available. And if I tell you, you might fucking try and buy them, and blah blah blah. But anyway, even the gaskets, I don't get them. I don't get them on Amazon. So the VIN plate here. That's aftermarket. Jason Drew does them. There, I don't remember how much he charges, but it's not much. It's like 30 some bucks or some shit. You can get whatever you want. You give him all the information, your VIN number and blah blah blah. He does the 2G ones, the 96 and up that have the Mitsubishi Motors Corporation on it, or you can get a DSM one for your 2G. Obviously, the 95s have the DSM badge. And then 96 and up have the Mitsubishi Motors Corporation badge on there. But anyway, that was a fun thing to put on there. Trying to think what else I could tell you. I do love this turbo. I love cheap, like, the reason why I love these cars so much is because they're so cheap to build. It's so cheap to make power. DSMs are literally the fastest car per dollar in the world. I don't give a fuck what everybody else says. You can't beat them. Your money goes way further with these cars. So that kind of mindset or philosophy or whatever I have, or my outlook on DSMs, this turbo cost me like I said, Justin Witzel built it, and I might have like $350 total invested in that. And Justin Witzel did everything I needed done to it. I got it out of the box. It was freshly rebuilt and threw it on, and everything fit like a fucking glove. So if you need any turbo work, whether you need a rebuild or you want to buy a new turbo and have him build it, whatever, or advice, Justin Witzel. If anything turbo related, you talk to Justin Witzel, because he's a fucking genius with turbos. The community is a much better place with Justin Witzel. He's been around for well over a decade with these cars, and he's always willing to help, and he will build you shit if you pay him. So I don't know if you guys can see down there, but I don't use the AC bracket. I use the old the washer trick there. I'm running the Evo knock sensor because I'm using an Evo ECU, and the knock sensor is completely different than the 1G. So you gotta use Evo knock sensor. I think that's about it. I can get you some close-ups of my relay panels. Let me turn my lights back on. See, I got my low beam relay, high beam, running lights, brake light relay, turn signal relay, and then the rest are empty up until you get to my fuel pump relay. I said that this is my chassis harness relay panel, and it is. But I do have my fuel pump relay going there because it just made a lot more sense than to put it here, because the fuel pump's right there. Instead of running wire all the way up to the front, it just made more sense to put that relay in the back. Up here I have a relay for my gauges, relay for my toggles, relay for my windows, which I have wired up to individual switches. Relay for my dome lights, and I think they're on now they're separated from the green lights. Alternator relay, it's up there. I'll try and get a diagram because I feel like that shit could be pretty useful. Relay for fan 1, relay for fan 2, and there's the party light relay. That's for my green lights. That's terminal bus for my toggle switches. So everything from my toggle switches comes off of this. Windows, and then I have, I think this one goes to, one of these goes to my lights, like my gauge lights. Maybe it's that one up there. So anytime I need to add a new gauge that has lights or whatever, I run it from that terminal bus up top there. It's that easy. It's so easy. I don't have to tap into wires or nothing. I got myself all set up so that way I can just easily hook up. Taillight, I don't even think I'm using this one. I don't remember. No, I'm not. I ended up putting, I was going to put everything on this one harness, and it was just too much shit, so that's why I made a second relay panel on the back. So this isn't being used. This is my OD2 port. I already said this earlier, but that's my controller for my wideband. ECU wiring over here. See, I just cut the pigtails. These are not used at all. I should probably trim the metal part off there, but I just cut everything, and then one wire at a time went up, and the rest is history. My battery wiring, I got 2 grounds from the battery to the chassis in the back, and then I have a ground that goes from the starter bolt on the bell housing to my firewall. And then I also, which this is something that people don't usually do, I have a ground strap on my tensioner bolt to my alternator, which is grounded right here. When I did some reading for my alternator issue with the wiring stuff, one thing that I did read that a lot of people, not a lot, but a few people do, is they ground, sorry, they ground the alternator casing as well, and they find that helps with your overall grounding. Oh yeah. Boost controller. I have a Hallman in-cabin boost controller, so I can just simply turn the knob up or down. This toggle switch next to it, that is so you ever be driving around town and a fucking shitbox Honda will rev at you or something, or a V8 or whatever, somebody revs at you, and most of the time when we're mature DSMers, we just kind of laugh and whatever, but sometimes I like to turn that switch off, and what that does is it makes my ECU think that I'm not moving and my speed is 0 miles an hour, so that way I can hit two-step while the car is rolling. Instead of just revving at them, I can turn that switch off, and even if I'm going 20, 30, 40, 50 miles an hour, whatever, I can hit anti-lag. And I get to scare some people doing that because shit's loud, especially when I do it right next to their door when they're passing me, when driver door to driver door. It's fun. I don't know. I think that's about it. Yeah. So hopefully you guys learned something about the car. Hopefully it was informative a little bit, and gives you some ideas and shows you some things that you could do. Maybe not so much the wiring shit, because that's a whole different world. And honestly, I don't know if I'd ever do it again, because it was such a pain. It's not a pain in the ass. It's just time consuming, and I hate when my car's down. When my car's down, especially when it's down for like big things, like big surgeries, like engine swaps or transmission or whatever. I get kind of weird because I don't know, when this car goes down, I go down, and I don't really get depressed anymore, but I used to almost get depressed when this thing, or when my main DSM was having problems and I couldn't drive it. So that was one of the reasons why I didn't want to just put the car down to build it, or build a motor. I wanted to buy another motor real quick, throw it in real quick, and drive it. That way it's running and driving, and I can go fuck around or go up and do a pull or whatever. Boost therapy is no joke, at least with me. So now, whenever I am ready to send that to the machine shop, this is still running, and the only downtime that I would have is when I put the car down to do a motor swap on a weekend. But that's something that I can plan on a day that I can plan. When I have money, if I blew up, okay? The GoPro cut off again, and I don't feel like going outside. And I wanted to sit in front of this canvas here, and it was pretty dark in here, and you couldn't really see my face, so I guess now you can see my face. But what I was saying before, say if I had this motor built, I don't know, 3 months ago, right? And then I blew up just like I did 2 weeks ago. If that motor was ready to go, then I could have easily blew my engine and had it running by the end of the day if I wanted to, because it would have been ready to go. So that's what I wanted to do, was get another motor in it real quick, build the motor like I should have done a while ago, and then it would be on standby in case I needed it again. Like say if I blew this motor, it'd be ready to go. So hopefully this time I can get it built. I wanted to do it this winter for sure, so hopefully soon it'll be done. And I really enjoy that kind of stuff, doing the motor, you know, assembling it, and it's just cool to go through the entire engine, and then once it's in the car, like then you're going wide open throttle at 35 psi, and thinking to yourself, man, I was just in this motor. I was inside the motor. I did all this shit. I put the rod bearings in. I did this. I did that, and it's all working like it should. To me, that's cool as shit. But I definitely I can't go too long without my car being up, and just being able to go start it up, even if I don't drive it. Just it's there, you know, for whatever reason. If I'm driving around town in my daily, and there's another quick car, on the off chance that there is a quick car, I see a quick car or whatever, and I think to myself, oh fuck, you know, my car is sitting in the garage torn apart waiting for a fucking engine. I can't, that shit sucks. So I don't know, maybe I'm a little weird, maybe some of you guys it's not too bad. A lot of people can go months or years without driving a car, and you know, people say, oh, I don't have the money, I don't got the time. But for me, I always make sure that I got the money, or I have the time to do what I need to do. I don't know, people say that all the time, I don't have the time or the money. Well, I sure as hell don't have a whole lot of money either, but I'm still doing it, you know, and I still got everything else I want in my life. So, but yeah, that's gonna be it for the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it and learned some shit, and maybe you got some motivation or whatever. At the very least, now when somebody asks me what's on my car, I can send them this video instead of showing them like some quick little walk around while the car's running and me not explaining anything. Usually the only people that get to see the car like this are people that see it in person, people in my personal life. So now I'll be able to show everybody else. So that's going to be it. Hopefully you guys be coming to the shootout. The numbers every year seems like they're getting lower and lower, but it's still a fun event. So hopefully we get some more DSMs out there, because it really is fun. What I do at work is I have 1 week of paid vacation a year at work, and that's when I use it. That's my vacation. So you got every year you have an entire year to plan ahead. So figure this shit out and get there, because it's fun, man. It's a really good time. But anyway, I'm gonna let you guys go. Thanks for watching. Catch you later.